Welcome to The Real Life Buyer. Whether you are buying for yourself or your business, here you will find tips, techniques and knowledge to support your journey to buying smart. Interviewing business owners and technical experts to give you information and guidance before parting with your money. Save money, time and get what you want when you want it. Now introducing The Real Life Buyer, David Barr.
Hello and welcome to The Real Life Buyer. In this episode, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Wes Mechen, owner of Tempo Running Store, offering a suite of running shoes, sports clothing, accessories, advice and support for the triathlete. Wes is an accomplished athlete himself and was selected for the Great Britain Middle Distance Age Group Triathlon Squad and has also been a teacher and lecturer in business and sport. In this episode, I'll be exploring with Wes how to choose the right sports shoes, the challenges facing high street retail, and how COVID-19 and Brexit are impacting the way he operates his business. Hello, Wes, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me on today.
No, absolutely fine. Looking forward to our chat. Perhaps you could spend a couple of minutes telling us about yourself, your athletic history, and a little bit about your Tempo Running Store.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Brighton myself. Used to be sort of an avid football player up until sort of like my mid-20s. Suffered an injury and then sort of got into running a bit more, having that sort of level of fitness from a football background. Started running with Phoenix Athletics Club in Brighton. Got the bug and then started really sort of ramping up my training, and then triathlon came along as well and sort of inspired me to sort of really crack on with it and being around sort of like-minded individuals and then get to that level of competing at an amateur sort of level, which was I'm sort of quite proud of. I also sort of combined that, I was being a teacher at the time, and then as the passion grew more and more stronger with running and triathlon, I had that urge of wanting to start my own business. And then teaching in Eastbourne, there was an opportunity arose where I thought, well, there's not a specialist running store in this area. And months of planning and down the line, eventually opened a shop. And 7 years later, thankfully, things are still going okay.
That's good. It's good to hear. It's interesting you mentioned about your peer group. I'm reading a lot about mindset at the moment and how the impact of the people around you affects the way you perform. Do you find that quite an important aspect of sport?
Yes, I think those that really want to succeed need to have that intrinsic motivation. That's really important. You've got to have that personal desire to achieve your goals, whether it be to complete a 5K or you want to perform on a very high level. But, training with others helps motivate you, certainly. But I think overall you need to have that desire from within to want to do well or achieve a goal, whatever it may be in your life. So especially in these times where, obviously we've got to keep socially distanced and not necessarily meet up with people. So getting out there, it's very good for the mindset, gets that endorphin release going with a bit of exercise. So helps with everyday life, I believe.
Yeah, I guess the element of competition between each other helps drive you forward a little bit as well then.
I'm someone that needs that drive. Yeah, I thrive on that. I get the buzz from racing. I get that nerves like everyone does before a competition. And then it helps with me, certainly with a training plan and building towards an event. I personally really like that situation, and that, if you've prepared well, then hopefully the race will go well as well. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some things about your store, about the products you sell, the kind of services you offer, and perhaps the target market you normally work with.
Yeah, sure. So as a specialist running shop, we mainly focus on the footwear. That's where our sort of expertise and knowledge lies. But it's we don't put all the shoes out on display in the shop floor. We try and minimize that down because for many customers, they're coming to the shop for advice, for the knowledge and experience. And what we provide as a service within the store as part of the shoe purchase is a gait analysis, look at their technique. So we record runners running on the treadmill from different angles. And then we slow it down on the software to, for example, look at the placement of the foot, whether they pronate, and then it's always to do with posture and that as well. But it's also a conversation about their past, their sporting background, their injuries, for example, what they want to achieve, and all that goes into selecting shoes for a customer. So they're not randomly picked out, for example. We do accessories such as headbands, little bags, and we do socks, apparel as well, but our sort of main focus is on the footwear.
Okay. I noticed on your online shop you refer to a runner's profile, and the person can fill out some information and submit that to you. What happens with that information, and how does that help you build a picture of the client?
Yeah, that came about as the first lockdown, actually. So because our doors were shut, and typically what we like to do is really talk to the customer we're in the shop, we thought what we could do is put that online so a customer could put in detailed information about their running, if they have started, for example, what they're trying to achieve, any injury history, for example, how many miles a week they run. Then we use that information to create a profile of that runner and the type of shoe they need. We then follow up with a phone call that they provided themselves voluntarily, and then we have a chat, and that then snowballs into arranging a visit out to the customer with a range of shoes that they can try on based on what we've discussed.
Okay. I heard about a couple of things about things like gait assessment and biomechanical checks. How does that kind of work? What's that all about?
Yeah, so the gait assessment essentially is assessing the way the runner runs on the treadmill. For example, we're recording their running at normal speed, then play it back on the software, a fraction of the speed, so we can slow it right down. Just look at any sort of minute moment and any sort of issue that might arise through continuous running that runners have had. Or, for example, if they've come in and they've had an injury, the gait assessment will help identify potentially why that is occurring. And that might be something to do with like a common running injury such as plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendinosis, for example. Lots of runners come in, say that their knee is hurting. And it could be to do with things like foot strike and how they land on their foot. And even look at postural checks as well as part of the biomechanical process, getting customers to stand on one leg or do a squat. And we can just assess, for example, their alignment of their knees. And all this just helps sort of influence the running shoe that's needed by the customer, really.
Okay. Do you find that sometimes you find things a little bit out of alignment, and that results in perhaps the suggestion that they go to a chiropractor or something like that to help resolve some issues?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. You would go, if they're suffering with a recurring injury and they've come to us, we're not the ones that are going to physically fix them. That might be something that a physio or an osteopath, a podiatrist, for example, may well need to look at, as that is their professional environment, that is their expertise. And we're certainly not saying that that's our field. What we can do is help runners with their footwear and point out certain exercises that may influence and help their running. But that's the whole advice. We can make recommendations on a physio or a podiatrist. They could see that, that I've worked with runners for many years, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just thinking about now, perhaps the stages people can go through. You could obviously, someone's just had their Christmas shenanigans, should we say, and they decided that they need to get something a little bit fitter about themselves. If someone's fairly new to exercise, should we say, for running, what kind of things can they do to ease themselves in to, make sure they don't injure themselves and put their interest off too quickly, and break those the kind of habits that you'll be looking for a long-term runner to achieve?
Yeah, I think the best way, the most popular way really, is if you're brand new, is to follow the Couch to 5K program, certainly. And I know they have been extremely popular during these sort of unprecedented times. And what that'll do is just give the runner an 8 to 10 week plan of how to build their running over that period, minimizing the risk of injury. It prevents the runner from overdoing it. I mean, the golden rule is normally to build no more than 10% volume a week, which may not sound a lot if you're only running 10K a week, but given over 10, 12-week period of time, you'll certainly build up that mileage. And not to worry too much about how fast you are, because that's quite a common concern for runners when they start to go. The first response is, "Oh, I'm very slow." It's irrelevant. It's only relative to you and your time that you can dedicate. People have families, job, work commitments. They're homeschooling at the moment, which many are struggling with. So getting out and running is the main thing, whether it is walk running as well, just to start with. And then if you have time as well on top of that, there's always the opportunity to do some strength and conditioning, maybe two sessions a week of 30 minutes, which you can do at home. And then, you could even add a bit of yoga into that as well, a bit of stretching. Research has showed that's now helping runners, and especially as we get older, and make you more supple. So I think the main thing is to get a plan, whether it's a brand new one of Couch to 5K, or whether you've done your first K, then find maybe a nice sort of novice 10K plan to then follow and build upon. And that will help with your goals and motivation as well.
Okay. Do you offer kind of off-the-shelf plans yourself that are, we say, aligned to people in certain conditions? Perhaps the individual that's lucky enough to be very slim, and like I am, shall we say, versus a guy that's perhaps carrying a sort of midriff weight, or right through to somebody who's perhaps quite a lot overweight.
Yeah, so what we could do is we've got some sort of running template plans. So we certainly start off with the Couch to 5K for the newbie runners, and then we've got you sort of more intermediate 5K. Then we sort of introduce 10K novice and intermediate as well, depending on your running background and whether you want to introduce that little bit more speedy effort as well. And then what we do, they're free of charge. They're sort of there as another part of the service that we provide, and then we just email them out to customers as and when if they need them. I've also posted them on Instagram and our Facebook page, just a way of encouraging runners to follow a structured plan. It's just that bit of guidance, really, making sure people have the rest days when needed as well.
Yeah. Okay. For me, I've always found it's easier running on tarmac. And I guess it's because you're not having to contend with undulations in the ground and your ankles being perhaps put at risk. But should I be mixing things up, different surfaces, different inclines? What should I do rather than just run let's say a 5K to build the overall strength? Do I need to keep changing surfaces and such like that?
You can do, certainly, and it might be. You could ask yourself, what is it I'm hoping to achieve from my running? If you're training for a trail half marathon, then yeah, you'll need to get out over the downs and get on those hills, because it might be something like the Beachy Head Eastbourne half or something like that. You don't want to keep running on the flat surface. Actually need to become more accustomed to the hills. If you're looking at training very easy at the moment, keeping your heart rate down, running on tarmac along the Eastbourne seafront, for example, is ideal. It's nice and flat. You can keep an eye on your heart rate, make sure you're training in like a nice easy zone, like zone 1 or zone 2. And that's a good sort of way of measuring how well you're doing. I think running off over the downs at the moment, it's quite nice just to get away from the town as well. It's good for your mind, your mindset. Seeing cows and sheep wandering around, little things like that do put smiles on your faces. Going back to the bit about strength, yeah, certainly doing things like hill reps will build strength, and you'll be working on possibly your VO2, working a different sort of system of the body, but that will introduce strength. You don't want to do it all the time, because you're escalating the risk of injury. But certainly introducing hill reps or that sort of workout once you've got a nice few weeks of training behind you is something that certainly runners would introduce into their training, definitely. I think running off road, it's a nice way of just putting a smile on your face, to be honest. Definitely.
Okay, it's good. For myself, I've tended to stick with a couple of brands. I've tended to use Saucony and Hoka. When I was running, I did actually start to run for quite some distances before I started to struggle with some knee and hip tenderness. And that's why I switched to what I thought might be the right thing to do. I didn't ask any experts, I must hasten to add, go for a Hoka trainer, because I could see they had a much, shall we say, thicker heel. Now, was that the right thing to do? How do you deal with those kind of injuries? How do you choose the right trainer in that respect?
Yeah, I mean, Hoka, they've got one of the highest, what they call stack heights in the shoe. That's the depth of sole. So it's a very cushioned shoe, good for sort of withstanding impact on tarmac, for example. They do trail shoes as well. They have something in them called a meta rocker, which is designed to help the transition. So if you do heel strike, which is commonly associated with knee injuries, that it helps you roll through the transition a little bit easier. Runners, a lot of sort of your runners that have been running for years may well stick with a brand. They feel quite loyal to a brand, certainly if they don't get injured. And then if you do get injured running a shoe, there might be a stigma attached to that model. That does happen a lot, as opposed to the runner possibly looking at their own training plan or lack of strength, for example. It's very subjective, I would say. I mean, we know what's popular within the shop, and Hoka are one of those brands that are certainly getting more and more popular year on year. And it is a shoe that I've run in quite a lot as well. But I do sort of vary the models that I run in, especially as a running shop owner. I need to know how shoes feel. It is very subjective to the runner themselves and what they enjoy. And we know Brooks are very popular, for example. They've got people like that brand because of the wider toe box, for example. And again, like you say, what you're training for. So whether it is a race shoe that you might be after, if you're looking to really go after your 5 or 10k PB, or you're maybe looking for a trail shoe, then a brand like Salomon might be more popular and geared towards what you're looking for. So yeah, I think for yourself, like you're saying, knee and hip, I think Hoka is a very good brand in general that looks to sort of tailor the more cushioned models for the runners that are running on tarmac as well. Yeah, so it's probably quite a good choice.
Okay, well, that's it might be more luck than judgment, but it does seem to have helped. I've just started running again after this Christmas. I'm trying to build myself up. I did manage, believe it or not, to hit 10Ks at the weekends, and then obviously perhaps I pushed too hard. I don't know, but I did stop for quite some time, and I've restarted again and trying to just go a couple of 3 miles just to ease myself back in. So I'm starting to enjoy it.
Yeah, like today was beautiful. I ran up the Cuckoo Trail today myself, and it was lovely. A bit icy underfoot, but the sun was out. It was a great way to start the day, And then compare that to running 2 days ago, strong wind, rain. It's not as fun, but once I've finished the run, I did procrastinate a bit before about whether to do it or not, as we've all done. But once I've done it, I did feel good. I felt better in myself for having done it. And it was like I told myself, well done. I mentally told myself, well done for getting out and doing it. So, yeah, I think it's that first step out the door. That's the hardest one. Once you're out, you're in it. You're in that zone, you're doing it. So, good on you. Yeah, build slowly.
Cheers. Yeah, I'll keep trying. Just think of the different brands now. Are the brands aligned to certain styles of running? Can you go out and buy, let's say, a particular running shoe that caters for most things, or should you have a particular shoe for certain activities? Whether you can afford to have 4 or 5 different running shoes for different things, probably not. But what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'd say the majority of customers are looking for that one shoe that does do everything, which is absolutely fine, depending on your level of competitiveness, your budget as well. Some people are in a fortunate position where they might have 2 or 3 pairs, or they might buy 2 pairs at a time and they alternate their running shoes. Um, but in terms of one shoe, if you're using it for all your training, say if you're running 3, 4 times a week, you generally don't. You want something more cushion. You want something that's going to withstand that impact, help the body recover as well. The only slight downfall in a shoe that's more cushioned is it weighs a little bit more. So if you're very competitive, there's those marginal gains where every second counts. So they might, if you've got that race shoe that's slightly lighter, you may well run quicker in that shoe if it weighs 50 grams lighter than a more cushioned shoe. However, the more cushioned shoe is, it's less likely to cause a sort of an injury or anything like that, or a niggle basically. So there is that shoe that does everything. It's just those marginal gains that you might get, say, with like buying a bike. You might buy an aluminium frame, but if you bought a carbon one, yeah, it might be quicker. It's the same with running shoes, really. If you are, a lot of your club runners though may well have 4 or 5 pairs of shoes, trail racing shoes, different pairs of road ones. So yeah.
I find it always more difficult when there's so many choices. You think, well, which one is the right one for me? So that's obviously where you guys come into the equation.
Yeah, thankfully, and hopefully that will continue as well. And people pick up, trust us as well in our knowledge. And like you say, if you walked into some of these more, what's the word? I don't want to say the brands, but everyone will know the big department running stroke sports shop they have a plethora of shoes all over their walls. It's overwhelming. And,
absolutely. You tend to go for the one that looks
tailored.
the one nice.
And are the staff providing that right insight and skills and knowledge just for running? So hopefully that's where we come in and we can able to hopefully assist people.
What I say surprises me, but there are some dramatic differences between costs, and is it right that the higher the cost of the trainer, the better the performance, the support, the quality of the product? Does that stack up for all the different brands and models?
Well, each brand, barring a couple, will have a range of shoes that they'll try and complement the budget of many different person. Some brands are considered premium, so they'll start at, for example, £120 upwards. And the reason for that is like what you've just said, the cushioning that's in there, the responsiveness of the shoe. We get asked a lot, sometimes people will say, I'm just starting out, I don't want to spend too much money. And they'll have a budget of whether it's £80, £100, which is absolutely fine. And that's entirely normal. You need to make sure you enjoy the process and the journey, and you don't want to spend a fortune on a shoe. So the more you spend on a shoe, yes, it may well have more structure and cushioning to it. But if you're just starting out, you don't need to spend £150 on a running shoe. You don't need to do that. Yes, it might feel more comfortable, undoubtedly, but to get you started, a cheaper shoe will help. It's a bit of a catch situation though. If you spend very little, like tiny amount, whether it's you're not going to have that cushion support that another more expensive shoe offers, so you may well not then enjoy the running process. So it's a catchy situation. And obviously what you've got now is the rise of the carbon shoe, which you're looking at a minimum of £160 for. But that's not for your newbie runner. That's for your runner that's been running for a while, wants to be pushing their best times, using it for a race situation. So you can spend £250 now on a carbon running shoe. And it's just, again, those marginal gains that you might get in a race situation.
Okay. So from a budgeting point of view, it really depends obviously on how much you can afford. But if you say paying up to say £60 to £80 for a beginner, you would get a good quality product that's obviously going to be sufficient for that initial foray into exercise. But then if you're turning pro or semi-pro, then you've really got to be thinking the 160-ish to get the best bang for your buck sort of thing. Or
Not that you have to be semi-pro or pro. It's just on the level that, it depends on your disposable income and your financial situation. And if you've got the money, then why not spend £160 on a carbon shoe if it means that you improve your time, if it makes you feel better? That's what you're getting out of it. And if you're a newbie runner, 60 to 80 is fine. It might be a shoe that's been reduced from the previous year, and you've got yourself a sort of a very good value shoe. But yeah, that'd be absolutely fine for starting out. Yeah, no problem at all in that sort of price range.
Okay, that's good. You mentioned a little bit earlier on plantar fasciitis. It's something until only a few years ago I've never heard about until my wife started to suffer from it. So if there are people with specific problems such as that, how do you go about trying to find a product that helps them deal with that, but still maintain the ability to exercise regularly?
Yeah, so if, say, for example, a customer's come in, they've been referred by their podiatrist, for example, they've been diagnosed with plantar fasciitis, there'll be models within brands of shoes that will provide something like a medial posting support, which basically supports the plantar tendon underfoot. And we'll be able to pick out those shoes for them to try on. And normally what that means is there's a difference in the height of the heel of the shoe to the midfoot, basically. And the higher that raise, or differential as they call it, means it's just taking the pressure away from that plantar tendon for the runner. So for example, Brooks do a model called the Adrenaline, Mizuno do one called the Wave Inspire. So there is a choice there for the customer, and they can try them on, for example. And what it's doing is it's alleviating the stress on the plantar tendon. And it's quite often found with people that walk a lot as well, especially in the summer when people have been wearing flip-flops, which is the nemesis
Yes.
many of, there is choice out there for people that have been suffering with plantar fasciitis, certainly.
Right. So they're kind of almost designed to cater for those sort of issues.
Absolutely,
basically.
yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Obviously, one of the hardest things for everybody, especially with a New Year's resolution, is to stick with it. So what kind of tips and techniques would you recommend clients trying to adopt to help maintain their commitment and passion for running and exercise?
I think the main thing is to essentially get a plan, have a plan, whether it's printed off, stick it on your fridge, or something that you can look at on your phone or computer, and you can tick off. And each time you do it, you get that sort of feeling of achievement every time you've done it. Maybe set yourself a goal as well, whether it's to complete a 5K, or if you've done the 5K, maybe to work on the time of that 5K. If it's if you're doing 35 minutes for a 5K, maybe aim to take a minute off after 4 weeks, 6 weeks, build on that, really. You could enter an event as well, which is hard in these times at the moment. I realise that because everything's sort of being cancelled up until May, but you could look at later in the year, something fairly local. You could look at a 5 or 10K event, for example. And with events, there's nothing to worry about in terms of how you perform. It's you against what your goals are, really, what you set yourself. So I think the main things to take away is to have a plan, set yourself 1, 2, or 3 goals that you'd like to achieve during the year, and then maybe enter a couple of events, which, all going well, we're looking at June onwards, I reckon, hopefully. So fingers crossed they'll be up and running again.
Okay. Do you recommend things like accountability buddies or apps that try and motivate you at all?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, there's so many running apps out there now as well, with plans on there as well. And I know there's ones that you can listen to Michael Johnson, or if you want to, you can listen to Sarah Millican talk to you and make you laugh and things like that. Obviously, mindfulness these days as well. There's lots of apps like that to help sort of put you in the right focus, give you that motivation as well. Alongside that, why not do a bit of yoga, de-stress, take your mind off what's going on in the world. So I think all these combine together to help produce that result of you feeling happier in running and achieving your goals. Yeah,
good. Now we're probably in the midst of winter. It's been pretty wet and cold out there.
Yeah.
Think about sports clothing. How important do you think that is to obviously keep you motivated? How do you go about selecting the right kind of products?
Yeah, I mean, it's based again on what your training is, where you're training, certainly. So it has been a bit colder recently. So, for example, myself, I've been wearing sort of tights, compression tights, quite a lot to keep the legs warm. Obviously, those 5, 10 minutes, you're not going out feeling really warm and hot, and the muscles aren't thoroughly warmed up yet. So to keep warm, I'll be wearing tights quite a lot. I like to wear a nice sort of lightweight windproof jacket, nothing too thick, because once I've started running, I do start getting warm and hot, especially if I start raising the intensity during the run. Base layers are very popular during these cold times. I know we're getting a cold spell coming again, so putting a base layer on, then a nice lightweight jacket on top is good, because if you've got a nice sort of pack away light jacket, you can roll that up, put it in a pocket, for example. I personally, because I'm follically challenged, have to wear a beanie hat. So otherwise, I don't feel the wind going through my hair. But just to keep me warm while I'm going along, I wear gloves as well, for example, because otherwise, if I personally, my fingers get a bit cold and that. I think a lot of runners, if you're running over the downs, that's where you can be caught out a lot of the time. Suddenly you might get a shower. The last thing you want to do is wearing a cotton t-shirt and you're absolutely soaked, and then it's windy, you'll be freezing cold. So a nice lightweight water repellent jacket will sort you out. Tights are a good idea just to keep the legs warm. Gloves and hats goes without saying really when it's really cold for most people. And I think they're the basics of what you need. Once you start moving into the summer, singlet, shorts, absolutely fine. You don't want to keep sweating loads, so that'd be fine.
Yeah. So you mentioned the compression clothing, the compression socks, things like that. Now, I've only ever thought of those when I go on an airplane. So, what do they actually do to your body to help you, in sport?
Yeah, I mean, the compression socks are there to serve as, first of all, they're going to keep that area warm. So it's your gastrocnemius muscle, the soleus muscle, for example. You've got your Achilles tendon, the compression, which is obviously a common running niggle. So it's going to help stimulate blood flow to those areas as well, which is good. A lot of runners will wear them afterwards as a recovery aid, provides a little bit of support for the muscles as well, keeps it warm, tights the skin. During these cold conditions, they are very popular for that. You'll often see runners over the downs and ultra runners, because they're on their feet for such a long time. It's just keeping that blood flow going to the tendon and the muscle. It just provides a little bit of support. Sometimes even if 1% helps, that's helping that muscle or the blood flow to the Achilles tendon, for example. And again, with that area of the body, as well as compression, stretching afterwards really helps. Doing the gastrocnemius stretch, the soleus stretch, which a lot of people will neglect, but your listeners can look it up, the soleus stretch, and that will really help as well with the Achilles. It's all these little things that will help that running experience and prevent injuries.
Yes, it's interesting. There seem to be a lot of different opinions about stretching before exercise. Do you think it's important to stretch before, or just crack on?
Personally, I do activation exercises before running and exercise. I certainly wouldn't stretch a cold muscle, because you want it to be warmed up and the blood circulating around. Stretching afterwards, yes, you could even incorporate, like I've already mentioned, a bit of yoga into the stretch down process. Personally, I do some glute activation work, whether that's sort of through bridges, for example, or side leg raise, just to get the glutes firing, which is quite often what physios would advise runners when they've had lower leg injuries. It's actually strengthen the glutes, do some glute activation work. There's some dynamic workouts you can do as part of the running process, like a swing leg as well, just to loosen up the hips. If you've been sitting at the desk all day or driving a car, we quite often get lower back, tightness in the lower back. So just loosen it up before you go running, because that may well impair your sort of running gait. So I personally would advise stretching after the run, spend 5-10 minutes, quadriceps, hamstrings, calf muscles. It'll be worth it in the end, definitely.
Okay, that's good. I understand you have a tri-tempo club. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a few things about that?
Yeah, so the club itself is not for profit. It's there fundamentally to sort of help runners, triathletes, cyclists train in a social environment. Obviously, very tricky at the moment, but as a club, we're there for each other. It helps adults. It helps with motivation. The sessions are structured as well, so it gives people that basis and that platform to build on for their events and that as well. And the nice thing about it as well, it's not a case that I run the club. I'm part of the committee, and we all share the responsibility and have that input into it. It's nice as well. We usually go away once a year as well to a warm country and all participate in an event together, like Lanzarote or Tenerife. So we're just trying to build that sort of community feel. People aren't excluded from joining if they're of certain ability or they've never done it before. We encourage newbies to participate as well. So no, it's been lovely. Yeah.
No, sounds good fun. Excellent. Just looking on to perhaps the retail side of things, the state of the economy. We've just gone through Brexit and are dealing with that. How is your business faring? And have you felt you've been well supported by the government and advice from the chambers of commerce and other people?
Yeah, I'd say in terms of information from the government, I've subscribed to their sort of emails on that and the updates, and I must admit they're probably coming through on a daily basis information. And what they're also doing is providing like these live webinars, so you can take part in like effectively like a Zoom meeting. They'll have a presentation form, but there's an opportunity to sort of raise questions and ask questions if you're unsure about anything. For me, the government has helped me. Yeah, I've been fortunate in that position where I've been accepted as part of their grant funding, which has helped me. In terms of the impact of COVID, yeah, it's recognisable that sales have declined for me, unfortunately. We're a store that bases its trade on speaking to customers face to face in store. We don't actually sell online. So as a result of the COVID and the lockdown, we've had to adapt our sort of strategy. And so we now offer what we call a deliver shoe service, where we go out to customers with a range of shoes, not just one pair that they can try on in the comfort of their own home while we remain outside the house, obviously wearing protective face wear and that at all times. So, but in terms of the government, yeah, I mean they've assisted me certainly, and then hopefully once we come out of this situation, there may well be that's upturn in the economy and spending. Fingers crossed. So.
Yeah, hopefully. Do you think when everything returns to, let's say, a state of normality? Is there any things that has happened you've done differently that you might carry on? Actually, is it actually giving you some new things to follow up?
Yeah, I think what was born out of the lockdowns is we've continued with the runner profile form. We've kept that online now. It's a way of customers getting in touch with us, providing information about their running needs, and then we can contact them back. I will continue with the deliver shoe service. That was something I have been doing on a Thursday when we haven't been in lockdown, to go out to customers who have still been working from home with a range of shoes that they can try on. So I think that's something that I will actually continue for the future. And we have been doing an appointments only basis as well, to encourage social distancing. And what that's actually made me reflect on, and customers obviously noted as well, is they're getting our whole attention. They can have a half-hour slot, they can come in, and it's just one-to-one. There's no one else in the shop at the time. So it's a very bespoke service in that respect. And it's been, the feedback's been very positive about that. So I think it's something that we may well continue in the future as well. So, yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's good to hear some positive things coming out of the situation.
Yeah, I think you have to, don't you? So, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So is there anything exciting coming up for this year? Have you got any, hopefully, events planned that, that might be of excitement or interest to the customers you have?
Yeah, I mean, we did. Unfortunately, we couldn't hold it last summer because of the restrictions. But the summer before that, for the first time, we had an event called the Last Leg Relays, which sold out within 48 hours. And what essentially it is, it's a team relay event, 4-person team, but there's actually 5 legs to the relay. And what you do is you take it in terms of the relay of each leg, but you run the 5th leg all together. And the finishing time is off the last member of your team crossing the line. So there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of, you have to work together as a team on that event. And it was very popular at the time. And fingers crossed, I'd love to hold it again because it brings all the clubs in the local area together. Not that you have to be a member of a club. People can arrange their own teams. There's some great team names as well. There was a competition for that. So yeah, it was really fantastic. We had Waitrose involved, the local Eastbourne Waitrose involved. I like to support St Wilfrid's Hospice as well, the charity in that. So fingers crossed that will go ahead. And also then the 10K that I run every end of September as well. And again, I sort of like to support the local St Wilfrid's Hospice with that one as well. So all going well. I'd like to hope that we can put those events on again, and the council are very supportive of those as well. So it's been, I'll just keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully things are going the right way at the moment. So let's hope all the vaccinations are done before that time, and everything can go back to some normality. Yeah. Okay. Just all these services we've talked about, sounds like you've got an awful lot to offer, even in this difficult time at the moment. Do you want to tell everybody how people would get hold of you and take advantage of some of these services that you now offer?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they can have a look at us I do the odd post on Instagram. I try and keep up to date with social media. I'm not the most technically gifted. I wouldn't say I was a technophobe, but I'm getting there. But yeah, people can follow us on Instagram at Tempo Shop UK. That's the same for our Twitter. We're on Facebook, so Tempo Run Shop. Our website address is www.temposhop.co.uk. It's got our contact details on there. And the best thing I think is give me a call. It's the best thing to do. Let's have a chat. We can chat about the running shoes, your injury history. I'll get a profile then about your running needs, who you are. And then the main thing is if you'd like us to come out to you, we can bring a range of shoes for you to try on in the comfort of your own home. That's the best sort of way to sort of go through it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's really good. I found that really interesting. There's some tips there for myself. Hopefully I'll manage to do a run at the weekend. I think the sun should be out this weekend. So all being well.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Yeah, and yourself. So that's been brilliant, Wes. Thanks very much for your time there. I've think it's been really useful. I found that quite informative.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you very much. And hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Definitely. Oh, no, it was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on your show. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please subscribe and leave a positive review if you can spare a minute or two. If you would like to contact me, my email address is david@thereallifebuyer.co.uk, or find me at Real Life Buyer on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, where you're welcome to direct message me. I look forward to you joining me on future episodes. Take care, and remember, save money and buy smart.